Hey kids, this is the first effort I'm making at providing some homework help for you while you're at home and away from me. I don't know, today's the snow day on Wednesday, and I don't know how long we're going to be apart. I don't know if school's going to be canceled tomorrow or what, but regardless, I'm sure you could use a little help with the homework from Unit 5, Lesson 3, The Era of Good Feelings. And so that's what I'm going to take a stab at doing right now. And if this works out and if it proves helpful to all of you, I will keep doing it and keep offering the assistance. So let's jump right in. Hopefully you've already looked at the slide containing the homework at the end of the website, at the end of the presentation from our class. But I have the questions here in front of me, and I'm going to try to point out to you where in the presentation you can look to find any answers, and also where to check in your notes for this information. But also I'll provide a little assistance in how to answer the question, the type of thinking that's involved, and what slides to look at and so forth. So let's get going. All right, I don't want to take too much of your time. Okay. First off, we have question 1. What was the era of good feelings? Why did it begin? Why did it come to an end? Right, well, you have 2 tasks here in this question. The first one is to define the era of good feelings. To do that, I would look in your, well, first off, you always want to start with your book, because the book has good definitions there. But for your notes, look at your notes on slide 3, which the title of that was What Is It? And if you need to go back onto the website and look at that, I suggest you do so, but I provide my definition there. The book will provide you with some other information. And that, of course, that slide will tell you when it began, and it'll give you a date for the ending. But if you want details on why it ended, then take a look at slide 8, The Corrupt Bargain of 1824. Right? And so you're doing 2 things. Define the era of good feelings. Use a complete sentence, remember. We're not just writing random words or something. We want complete sentences. And the second part of this, why did it begin? So you're going to explain why this era of good feelings, which you have defined, okay? You're going to explain why it began, and then why did it end? Look at the corrupt bargain of the election of 1824. That will help you there. Question 2, why did the United States establish the Monroe Doctrine? Again, here you're going to want to look both in the book, of course, at the sections about the Monroe Doctrine, but also look at the slide, the Monroe Doctrine, slide number 5 in the presentation. The Monroe Doctrine, just to give you a little of information here, the Monroe Doctrine, of course, was the foreign policy measure taken by President Monroe in 1823. Okay? And it was a message to all of the countries in the rest of the world, but especially in Europe, okay? Russia and Spain especially, telling everyone that the New World, the Western Hemisphere, North America, South America, are closed to further colonization. And remember, while the United States didn't have the military might to back up this claim, we did have the backing of the British, whom we had recently befriended. Okay? Their navy was powerful enough to keep other countries from interfering in the New World. And again, this was an effort to protect our national security. It was to keep the United States free of having other European powers messing around in our little backyard. The book will provide a good description if you need any further information, and check your notes from my lecture in class. You'll do just fine. Question 3, explain the Panic of 1819. Right? Remember, this panic, this was the first financial crisis in the history of the United States, the first time that the business cycle really crashed. So look at slide 6, the Panic of 1819. It will go into the things that caused the panic, and it will go into the effects of the panic, And that's really what you're looking at here. When you remember, when you explain something, you explain why it began, you explain what it did, perhaps you want to show why it came to an end, right? But when we are explaining a phenomenon, we are especially paying attention to cause and effect. That's what an explanation is. And if you are just writing random nonsense, that's not going to help anybody. All right? So make sure you look into the causes and the effects of the panic. Okay? For question 4, why was Missouri rejected from joining the Union at first? And then what allowed Missouri ultimately to enter the Union? Now, if you were paying attention in class and you remember this, this was the Missouri Compromise. We're talking about the Missouri Compromise here. And the first question is essentially, if you want to write this question in the homework a different way, why was the Missouri Compromise needed? That's another way of saying this question. So, why was Missouri denied entrance into the Union? Remember, Missouri as a territory had been a slave territory. Remember that there were an even number of slave states and free states already, and that in the Senate, every state gets 2 senators. So if Missouri joins the Union and throws off the balance between slave states and free states, the Senate will be off balance and dominated by slave states, and that would not have gone well for the free states, and it potentially could have caused the Civil War to happen early. So that's part of it. All right, you're going to want to look at all of that, and then use your noggin. Why do you think they wouldn't want Missouri to join? And then ultimately, what happened that allowed Missouri to join? As a hint, I'll just go ahead and tell you the state of Maine is involved there. Read up on the Missouri Compromise. You'll do just fine on that one. Okay. And question 5. Why was the election of 1824 called the corrupt bargain? And why did no one get a majority in the Electoral College? First off, in the presentation, you're looking for slide 8, which is the corrupt bargain of 1824. Two-part question, obviously. Why is it called the corrupt bargain? Well, for that, you need to know what happened. What was the bargain that was made? Okay? And to answer that appropriately, then you should probably make sure you know what you're talking about for the second part of the question, which is why did no one get a majority in the Electoral College? To do this, I would recommend reading up in the book on the election of 1824. Check your notes from the lecture today, or earlier this week or whatever, on the election of 1824. But I'll remind you, President Adams, John Quincy Adams, was elected in 1824, and this despite Andrew Jackson getting the most votes. Okay, so obviously Jackson and his supporters are the ones that called it a corrupt bargain. Look into that, and that will help you answer the question. But you're explaining why it's called corrupt bargain, right? Why is it seen as corrupt? And then, of course, you're going to want to explain why no one got a majority. Just as a hint there, remember, there's only one political party at this point, the Democratic Republicans. So look into that, all right? And I hope this helped. Hopefully this went well. If you need any further assistance, remember you can always email me, jcochran, that's C-O-C-H-R-A-N, at ctkprep.org. And hopefully I will see you kids again soon, maybe tomorrow or the next day. With that, good luck.